Hi, everybody. Hi, welcome everybody to Carpigiani. Here we are for this very interesting event, Gelato Day, European version, let's say, of Gelato Day. What we're going to do today is a demonstration, let's say, on an application, let's say in this way, let's put it this way, of the flavors they made directly during the Gelato Day challenge. That was and that is Dolce Sinfonia. So Dolce Sinfonia, just a quick translation from Italian language, is like sweet symphony, and is a sweet symphony. Let's say is a Dolce Sinfonia because actually it's a mix of different preparations of together, different, let's say, flavors, aromatic notes. So in the end, actually, is going to be like a triumph of different aromatic notes. So the flavors I'm talking about, the ingredients we're going to use actually are very Italian, let's say, because anyway, the winner of this challenge, the winner of Gelato Day, is an Italian. Actually, is an Italian lady from the southern part of Italy, and so you can imagine that the ingredients we're going to work with are all of them very, very Italians. No, so we're talking about ricotta cheese. We're talking about figs. We're talking about hazelnuts, and then we're talking also about two, let's say, foreigners in terms of ingredients, not properly Italian, but anyway, very appreciated from the Italian audience. We're talking about rum, dark rum actually, and we're talking about chocolate. Of course, chocolate is probably the most appreciated ingredient in the world, you know, and so also by the Italian, of course. So basically, what we're going to do today actually is we want to match all of these ingredients all together, and we want to create a sweet symphony. We want to create a Dolce Sinfonia. Actually, the recipe from this lady from the southern part of Italy is ricotta, hazelnut, and chocolate gelato, together with rum and caramelized figs. So actually, it's caramelized figs that have been soaked into rum. So what we decided to do today, anyway, is just a different version, okay, using exactly the same ingredients, but trying to make something, let's say, a little bit of alternative, a little bit different, a little bit, let's say, Carpigiani style, no? So essentially, we rearrange a little bit this recipe, and the final target is to make, of course, something very Italian, of course, an explosion of Italianity once again, but reinterpreted it a little bit differently. So actually, what I want to do basically is a maritozzo gelato. I'm quite sure that probably, let's say, you know, most of you never heard about what a maritozzo is, never know what a maritozzo is. So let me explain what is a maritozzo. Maritozzo actually is a brioche in the end, is a very typical dessert, let's say, a very typical sweet product from Rome, actually from the central part of Italy. And normally what they do is they take this brioche, they cut the brioche in a half, but without separating completely, just keeping the bottom part actually connected, and they fill up these brioche with whipped cream. This is the super traditional one. And this is a kind of product that is getting super, super popular and very appreciated, not only in Italy, but also all over the world. I know, for example, that it's getting super popular also in Japan. So we're talking about many, many miles away from here, no? So we're talking about these products, and maybe we can have a look on, I think you can see directly, this is the maritozzo. And actually, the history of this quickly, you know, is marito in Italian language is like the groom. And so when we're talking about many, many, many years ago, basically, we're talking about more than 300, 400 years ago, during the wedding time, the groom used to serve directly to the bride these kind of bread, actually, because if we're going back in, say, 400 years ago or almost, that was a sort of bread. That was a sort of sweet bread. Now the evolution of it is a brioche, but anyway, the final name it's quite the same, no? Because it was a gift from the marito. Marito is the groom, and now, saying in a more funny way, actually, they decided to change it into maritozzo. Okay. So what I want to do today, basically, is a maritozzo gelato using actually the ricotta gelato, ricotta with all the other ingredients that I mentioned before. So I think I talked a little bit too much. No, I expected to talk 2 minutes, and normally 2 minutes are 10 minutes, and so I'm late as always. I think we can start immediately our preparation. No, essentially we can have a look on the recipes all together, and we can start sharing the recipes. And I'm talking about 5 different preparations altogether. I'm talking about a dark chocolate coating. I'm talking about rum and orange syrup. I decided to add some orange zest actually to the rum, because I think the orange matches very well with all of these ingredients, with the figs, with ricotta, with chocolate, and with hazelnut as well. And so I decided to, and with rum, of course. And so I decided to use a little bit of orange in the orange and rum syrup. And then we have a ricotta gelato. And then we have another 2 preparations, which are caramelized hazelnuts and caramelized figs. So let's start with the very first, the beginning, let's say, of this recipe. And actually, what we're going to do is we're going to use a dark chocolate coating. So let me explain quickly what it is. A dark chocolate coating is what we use to make stracciatella normally. Is a kind of chocolate sauce that normally we use to create these kind of chocolate chips, irregular, let's say, chocolate chips in the stracciatella. So essentially is melted chocolate. It's very easy, nothing too complicated, as you can see, as you can see also from the procedure, melted chocolate, melted cocoa butter. You put them together, you mix them all together until you get a uniform color, and then this is the dark chocolate coating done. So it's very easy to make. And of course, we prepare this in advance because we didn't want it to go back and forward, let's say, from the microwave oven or the bain-marie. And so we already prepared that, okay? And right before, let's say, to extract gelato, we're gonna extract the dark chocolate coating container from the microwave oven in order to keep it liquid and perfectly usable. So this is the very first preparation that has to be ready while we're going to extract the gelato from the machine. The second preparation, so we can carry on with the second slide, let's say. The second preparation, vai pure. Actually is, anyway, no, the other one. One step back. There we go. Are the caramelized hazelnuts. So since in this Dolce Sinfonia we have the hazelnuts, why not keeping the texture of the hazelnut instead of blending them, instead of reducing them into a paste? Why not keeping the texture of the hazelnut, giving a sort of boost, let's say a little bit of an hint of caramel, and so why not caramelizing them? So basically what we've done, we caramelized the hazelnuts, and as you can see, this is the recipe, and the recipe is quite easy actually. We're talking about a pinch of salt, as you can see, 1 gram, just a little bit in order to announce the taste of hazelnuts, the whole hazelnuts, and then with the water, the sucrose, and the glucose syrups, we have to create a syrup. So essentially what we have to do is we have to put the water into a pot. Then we're going to put the sugars in that, so the sucrose as well as the glucose syrup. And then we're going to cook them without touching it. So don't stir it, don't use a whisk, don't use a spatula, don't use anything. Just let it go naturally until you reach 120 degrees. So you need a thermometer, actually, if you want to be much more precise. Or eventually what you can do is, as soon as you see that the bubbles are getting smaller and thicker, then that means that you reach roughly 120 degrees. Meanwhile, while you're waiting for the sucrose, the glucose syrups, and the water to become one unique thing, getting a syrup and getting 120 degrees, you have to warm up the hazelnuts. So you can put them in the microwave oven eventually, or you can put them in the oven directly, or maybe in a pan. It doesn't matter, actually. They have to be warm, because as soon as you get 120 degrees in terms of water, sucrose, and glucose syrups, you have to put them in, and the temperature of them, it must be quite high. Otherwise, actually, the sugar is going to crystallize, and we're going to have a mess. But we don't want a mess, actually. And so basically, remember this important detail to warm up the hazelnuts. Once you put the hazelnuts into the sugar syrup, 120 degrees, then you keep stirring continuously until you will see that the color of this sugar syrup is going to change, let's say, from transparent and white to golden brown, and it's going to cover completely the hazelnuts. So at this point, once you see a nice golden brown color, at this point, you can transfer directly the caramelized hazelnut into a silk carpet or in a tray, by the way, with baking paper on the bottom. And then you let them cool down until you get room temperature. Then you can break them easily. And the final result basically is this. So what we have here are hazelnuts, let's say a little bit bigger, like this one, for example, or much smaller, like a sort of a powdery kind of thing, okay, in order to have, during the garnish of gelato, in order to have a perfect, let's say, distribution into the gelato and different level of crunchiness, something super crunchy, something a little bit less crunchy, And so that's why it's better to use irregular pieces. So every time is a different, let's say, experience when you have a bite, So this is the second one. And of course, the hazelnut we work with are hazelnuts from Italy. Actually, in this specific case, we're talking about hazelnut from the northern part of Italy. We're talking about hazelnut from Piemonte. Piemonte is a northwestern region, let's say, in Italy, and is very famous for different very important ingredients, such as hazelnuts, of course, but also truffle, especially white truffle, and definitely wines. So there are a lot of vineyards over there. And actually, there is this beautiful land, which is called Le Langhe, and actually is a combination of many, many hills, and on those hills, you will find vineyards as well as hazelnut trees. So the hazelnuts we're used to make this product, so the caramelized ones, they are from the Piemonte, from Le Langhe. And this specific variety of hazelnut is called Tonda Gentile delle Langhe. That means, if you want a sort of translation of it, Tonda is round, Gentile means like delicate, Delle Langhe means from Langhe, so from this part of Piemonte. Okay, so once again, this is a very typical Italian product, very appreciated from Italians, but not only from the Italians. And then it comes the protagonist, I would say, the main character of this recipe, which is ricotta. I decided to keep ricotta plain. I didn't want to add hazelnut in the gelato itself. I didn't want to add chocolate. I just wanted to use plain ricotta, because actually ricotta is quite delicate, and so I didn't want to add any chocolate in it or any hazelnut in it. I just wanted to create a quite simple, let's say, ricotta gelato. In this specific case, as you can read, I decided to use sheep ricotta. Sheep ricotta because sheep ricotta is stronger in terms of taste compared to cow ricotta, and actually it's my favorite. So I decided that according to my palate directly, and I love sheep ricotta. I love cannolo siciliano. I don't know if you ever heard about this. Cannolo siciliano is made with ricotta cream, and normally ricotta cream is from sheep ricotta, and so why not using directly this kind of ricotta? In this specific case, this kind of ricotta comes very close from where I live. I live just 50 kilometers from Carpigiani. In this area, by the way, in Emilia-Romagna, in Bologna's province, and in this dairy farm, basically, they make this kind of ricotta from sheep, which is called mousse di latte. Mousse di latte, it's like saying, it's complicated to translate, let's say, but it's like a super creamy ricotta. Okay, it's something like that. Let's say super cream. Mousse is something like super cream, and so I wanted to use directly a local product directly from my area. That's why we have sheep ricotta. Another very local product, as you can see in the recipe, is mascarpone cheese. Mascarpone is super appreciated in my area. I love mascarpone cheese, and mascarpone cheese helps a lot in improving the creaminess of the product. So you can decide to use mascarpone cheese in a custard gelato, in a fior di latte as well, for example, and why not in a mascarpone cheese? As you can see, the cream quantity is not that much because we have the mascarpone cheese. So essentially, I decide to replace partially the cream quantity I wanted to use in this recipe, with some mascarpone cheese, okay? And then, as always, as you can see, a pinch of salt in order to improve the final taste. I also tried, let's say, to quantify the orange zest. You see, I wrote the orange zest separately from the recipe, the orange zest, because it's just an aromatic note. I think, once again, that the orange works very well with ricotta. And so it's just a little bit of ricotta, orange zest in the ricotta gelato. It's 3 grams, but actually is the zest of, let's say, a quarter of an orange, something like that, roughly, So this is just a very, very small touch of orange zest. What you have to do, basically, is you need to pasteurize all the ingredients apart from the cheese, mascarpone cheese and the ricotta cheese, and apart from the orange zest. These are very delicate products, and so we don't want to ruin them with the cooking process. That's why it's better to pasteurize separately the milk together with the cream, together with the sugars, the salt, and the stabilizer. And then once we arrive at the end of the pasteurization, which in this case is low pasteurization because I want to preserve, by the way, the milkiness of the cream and the milk. Once we arrive at the end of the pasteurization, then it's time to add the ricotta cheese and to add the mascarpone cheese and the orange zest. So first you blend the mascarpone cheese and the ricotta cheese together with the rest of the pasteurization. Once you get a uniform texture, at this point, you can add the orange zest. Then what you have to do is you cover it up with plastic film, with wrap in general, and then you can maintain the product directly in the fridge for 1 night. That's why we prepared everything in advance. This aging time, guys, is very important for 2 reasons. It's very important for the texture, because according to the aging time, we're going to get a much creamier, smoother, more velvety texture the day after. And this is my target. This is what we want to get. We want to get something super creamy and velvety. So this is the first reason why it's better to produce this product the evening before for the day after. The second reason why it's important to do that is because in this way, what we're going to get is going to be a much strong, intense, final ricotta taste. Ricotta and orange as well, no? So after 1 night resting, let's say, the product is going to be much tastier the day after. And this is our general rule, let's say, not just for gelato, not just for this mix. Since we're talking about Carpigiani, and Carpigiani is in Bologna is very famous ragu, what you call, let's say, bolognese sauce. No, we call it ragu. If you make ragu today, and you eat it the day after is tastier. And this is the same for a tomato sauce. It's the same for whatever kind of product, let's say, you know. So in general, when you have a thermal shock for the aromas, it's a problem for them to come out and sprinkling, let's say, the perfumes and the taste. But if we leave them resting, they will redistribute themselves, let's say, in the mix. And in this way, after, in general, 12 hours actually resting, the product tastes much better. That's why we produce everything in advance. So what we have, by the way, we have to strain off the orange zest, because I don't want any orange zest. I don't want any texture, because we're going to have a lot of textures directly during the extraction of gelato, because I'm going to add some chocolate with the chocolate coating, and also some hazelnut. So we have already the texture of the hazelnut and the texture of the chocolate. I don't want extra texture coming from the orange zest. That's why we're going to strain them off, okay? So this is the mixture. This is the ricotta mix. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to strain it into the bucket in order to avoid to have any orange zest leftovers. There we go. Okay. So I'm talking about a very, very small quantity of orange zest, but I don't want anything in. I want something smooth and velvety, and I don't want any extra texture, because I'm going to have a lot of textures directly later on when I'm going to add the hazelnuts and when I'm going to add the chocolate. All right? So you see, I don't know if you can see the orange zest here. Okay, it's just a little bit, but I don't want them. I repeat. Okay, and so I wanted to strain them off completely. All right, so let's put it away. Thank you very much. And let's do something finally, and not just talking. Okay, so basically what we're going to do right now is we're going to batch freeze our product. So as you can see, we have the batch freezer right beyond my shoulders here. Let me double check there's nothing in. Okay, just to be sure. It's always better to double check. And then we're going to start immediately now with our batch freezing process. While I'm talking about the batch freezing process, I will explain you the remaining two preparations. All right? So let's go. The ricotta mix in. Ricotta with a little bit of mascarpone cheese and just a hint of orange from the orange zest. There we go. All right. At this point, let's press the gelato icon here. And once we press the gelato icon, you go in another menu where you see different programs. The one we're going to select is going to be Gelato Excellent. So Gelato Excellent, let's change the texture in the way you want. So I like 100 as the texture to achieve. Just for you quickly, for you to understand, increasing this parameter, the product will be a little bit more compact, or reducing this parameter, the product will be softer, no? So what I want actually is something stable, let's say, you know, not too hard, not too soft, creamy and scoopable, and that is not going to melt immediately, and that's why I prefer to select 100 as the parameter of texture. There we go. Anyway, as you can see, this brioche basically is going to be turned into a maritozzo, okay? So what I need essentially is rum and orange syrup, and now I'm going to explain you how to make it, okay? And then this is something very typical, once again, very typical from my region, let's say, from the southern part of my region, from Romagna especially. These are caramelized figs, okay? I love this, I tell you. This kind of product is perfect not only with sweet products like the one we're making now, but this is very good also with piadina. I don't know if you ever heard about piadina, okay? But piadina is a sort of pita bread, let's say, very typical from my region, especially from the southern part of my region, so very typical from Romagna. They make so many kinds of piadina, but in many places, in many piadina shops or in piadina restaurants, you will find the combination of piadina together with a kind of very typical cheese, very soft, fresh cheese called squacquerone, and then the caramelized figs. So I wanted to bring something that talks about my region, no? Talks about my land, let's say, and that's why I decided to make the caramelized figs. So let's see basically how to make them. But before to talk about that, let's prepare everything for the final product, no? So what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to cut right in the middle, like this, the product, okay? What I'm going to do now is this is the syrup, and now I'm going to explain to you how to make it. It's very easy, by the way. You know, this is the syrup made with dark rum, sugar, water, and orange zest in infusion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to soak it properly. I mean, I want to be generous. I want you to feel it. I don't want to do something like a baba. You know, baba is super, super soaked, let's say, with a rum syrup. I don't want it to reach this level, but anyway, I want you to feel it. That's why I do a couple of rounds, and I do this in both of the halves, no? In this part as well as this part. Let's be generous once again. There we go. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on the bottom of the maritozzo, the brioche in this specific case, the caramelized figs. So let's open it and let's put it right here. It's in the end, you can decide to keep them whole, so you can keep the whole figs directly, or eventually to mash them. They're not completely mashed. There's not a puree, no, but because we have some pieces here, so you can decide either ways to keep them whole or eventually to reduce into smaller pieces, turn into a sort of marmalade, no? We decided to do that because in this way we can sprinkle them in a much better way, okay? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep it for a while. Let's say, just let me dry it up, the excess. There we go. All right. And I'm going to keep it for a few minutes, just the time gelato will be ready, directly in the shock freezer. Here we go. Meanwhile, let me explain the caramelization of the figs as well as how to make the rum and orange syrup. So let's go back with the file with the recipes and let's have a look directly, first of all, on the rum and orange syrup, okay? So this is the recipe. As you can see, it's very easy. We're talking about water, glucose syrup, sucrose, rum, of course, and orange zest. So essentially, what we have to do is to cook together the water, the glucose syrup, and the sucrose in order to melt the sugars. I wrote 65 degrees. It could be even 70 degrees, 75. It doesn't matter, to be honest with you. 65 is enough to be sure that everything is perfectly melted. As soon as we get this temperature, what we can do basically is we can cool it down, or eventually a variation of it, you can put the orange zest directly when the product is hot. But remember that when you add the aromatic ingredients like the orange zest, to hot temperature or cold temperature, what you're going to extract are different tastes, because there are some elements in the ingredients which are thermosensitive. That means they're going to be destroyed with the temperature, and other elements, other aromatic notes, which are not thermosensitive. So if we put the orange zest at 65 degrees, we're going to destroy the part which are thermosensitive, and we're going to keep the part which is not thermosensitive. So I prefer to drop down the temperature completely in order to get room temperature, in order to preserve all the aromatic notes, all the bouquet, let's say, of the orange zest. Once the temperature is room temperature, so when the product is cold, at this point we can add the dark rum, we can mix them all together, and we can keep everything in the fridge for one night at least. But even if it's for a couple of days or 3 days, it doesn't matter. The longer, the better. After, let's say, maybe 1 day or two, you can strain off the orange zest. You will see that the orange zest, they will change color. From orange, they're going to get white, let's say, because they released all the essential oils and all the aromatic notes into the rum and the sugar syrup, and now you have your sugar syrup ready to use. So this is the orange and rum syrup. Finally, the very last preparation is the caramelized figs. The caramelized figs are very interesting, let's say, because it's a very poor product, because the cost is nothing, especially in summertime, the end of the summertime. We are plenty here of figs, and is a great way to use them and to preserve them eventually also for winter time or for later. So this is the very traditional way to make them, using the oven. So what you have to do basically is you need some lemon juice, you need some sucrose, and you need, of course, the old figs, possibly the dark ones. They are tastier, they are sweeter, they are perfect for this kind of preparation. And then also some lemon zest. How much? As you like. Okay. What you have to do basically is you need to prepare the figs in a tray, cleaning them and removing the top part. And then you have to pour the lemon juice in a kind of even way, all over the tray. And then you have to sprinkle in a uniform way, of course, the sugar and the lemon zest. Then it's super important. What you have to do is to cover them with plastic film, or eventually with baking paper, with the lid, with whatever you want. And you forget, literally, for 12 hours, resting. So it's a product that takes time. You need patience, The day after, you can put the tray directly into the oven that you have to preheat at 110, 120 degrees, so quite low. And then you let it cook until they caramelize, so a couple of hours roughly, okay? This is the way. Anyway, gelato is ready. And so let's extract it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use the chocolate coating as well as the caramelized hazelnuts. So let's go. Let's open this. Let's make maybe a couple of layers. You see the creaminess, the smoothness of the product. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is chocolate first. How much? As you like. It depends on how you're generous. So it's totally up to you. Okay. And then we can sprinkle the hazelnuts. In this specific case, I would say don't exaggerate too much, because otherwise the hazelnuts, they're going to be quite predominant, and you're going to taste only hazelnut. Has to be a match, has to be a combination, and so we don't want one to prevail compared to the other one, There we go. So this is what we're going to get. This is the first layer. Let's carry on with the final layer. So we can speed it up a little bit. There we go. We are almost at the end of our gelato extraction. You can decide to decorate the pan in the way you prefer, like keeping the peaks, like what I'm doing, like this. And so this could be eventually, a way to decorate the product, as well as, let's say, doing exactly the same thing I did for the first layer, okay? So I show you the first version and then the second one. So let's come here. And you can decide directly to use the chocolate like this. All right. And then sprinkling directly the irregular pieces of hazelnuts and caramelized hazelnuts, let's say, directly on top of the product. We can decide to keep it this way, or eventually you can decide to do exactly the same thing I did before. Okay, so you with the spatula, let's say, pushing a little bit, distributing the product. This is the final effect. Okay, so we're going to clean a little bit the edges. And now let me just keep the product for a little bit in the shock freezer just to stabilize it. No, 1 second. And then we can finish directly our preparation. So the very final part is going to be fill this up with gelato, okay? And in the very, very end, the right way, let's say, to serve maritozzo is also to sprinkle a little bit of icing sugar on top. And so we prepared also a little bit of icing sugar. So now I'm going to show you. All right. So this is the icing sugar. Let's keep a little bit of hazelnut, maybe to sprinkle a little bit, on top in the end. So we have everything ready. So what we're going to do, just wait 1 minute, just to have the product a little bit more, let's say, compact, And meanwhile, let me answer to your question. If we can't get sheep ricotta, would the recipe still be successful with cow ricotta? Let's say, in the end, the recipe is going to be the same. It's going to be less fatty and less tasty, to be honest with you. In this area, we say that the cow ricotta is perfect to make tortelloni. So tortelloni is a kind of pasta, stuffed pasta. And the cow ricotta, which is more delicate compared to the sheep ricotta, is perfect to do these kind of things. But when it comes to dessert, it would be better, let's say, to use a little bit stronger ricotta, Anyway, if you can't find sheep ricotta, you can use goat ricotta. Eventually, you can use buffalo ricotta, or anyway, you can use cow ricotta. The recipe is going to be the same. It's going to be less tasty, let's say, than this one. I tell you, this is going to be quite wild, let's say, because this is the sheep ricotta is very tasty, and I like this kind of taste. Okay. Anyway, let's carry on with the final part, and then I will reply to what would be the setting for Labo A12. Let's say it's the same of this machine, actually, so you can select 100. It's perfect. It's no problem. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open it like that. Okay. And then I'm going to fill this up with our gelato. Okay. Let's make it nice and rich as it's supposed to be. Has to be greedy, you know, has to be like, in Italy we say dirty. All right. Now let's try to make it a little bit more flat, excluding the excess, like this. Let's remove what's not necessary. Here we go. So this is the final product. As you can see, very, very rich. I exaggerated a little bit, let's say, with gelato, but it's okay. It's a rustic preparation. That's what we want. The final touch with a little bit of icing sugar on top, like that. A little bit of, I want just the powdery part, actually, no, of the hazelnuts. Let's put also some hazelnuts like that, right? And finally, this is the plate. And this is the final product. All right. Okay, so this way, I think it's better. Perfect. So we finished. I see I exaggerated a little bit with with gelato, but there are many hungry persons now to feed to feed up, and so I think they're gonna be happy, you know, if there is a little bit too much gelato in the product. So this is an idea of Dolce Sinfonia, a little bit revisited. Can we replace glucose syrup with dry glucose? Yes, eventually you can replace dry glucose with glucose syrup with dry glucose. Just increase a little bit the water. So increase a little bit, like every 20 grams, let's say, of glucose syrup you're using, you should do this kind of proportion, let's say 16 grams dry glucose, 4 grams water. So this is roughly the proportion you should do. So if you want to replace 20 grams of glucose syrup, I repeat, 16 grams of dry glucose, 4 grams of water, right? You're going to get pretty much the same product, okay? So this is the final product. This is I'd say an explosion of Italianity, by the way. We have the ricotta, we have the figs, the caramelized figs, we have the hazelnuts, we have the oranges as well, and we have this kind of maritozzo, let's say, this kind of product, very, very, let's say, rustic and very, very appreciated all over Italy, especially, let's say, from Rome directly, okay? So we arrive at the end of this demonstration altogether. I hope you enjoyed this recipe, and I invite you guys to try this recipe at home directly. And another thing is, if you want to participate to the Gelato Day Challenge, eventually you can make a video, you can film the video, you can record the video, and you can send the video directly to the link you will find on the Gelato Day website, okay? And of course, if you want to know more on how to make gelato in general, no, how to make recipes, how to use the ingredients as we did, you are more than welcome to come to Carpigiani Gelato University. If you are a professional, if you are a beginner, no problem. We do classes for all of you, basic, intermediate, advanced, and also special classes. Having said this, I would say thank you very much, guys, for being with us so far. Thank you very much for joining us, and see you soon, maybe directly here in Carpigiani. Okay? Ciao a tutti.